Strange Magic, written by Suzana Thompson, narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 9. I had forgotten about it. Caitlin's astonishing revelation about my childhood prediction had not caused any long-buried memories to surface. Surprisingly, the events of the day didn't keep me awake that night. I fell soundly asleep and woke up refreshed and happy. My parents, who were unaware that I had nearly been killed the day before, didn't know what to make of my spontaneous hugs and I love yous. They shared bemused smiles. "Someone got up on the right side of the bed today," Dad said. "Remember which side it is and get up on that side every day." "I hate to break it to you," Mom said, "but this kind of sunny mood usually involves a boy." "Why do you have to spoil it?" Dad wailed. "Why can't you let me live in blissful ignorance?" "Mom, not everything is about boys. Can't I just be in a good mood?" "I'm sorry, Susie. From now on, I will bask in your good cheer without questioning the source." As I watched them laugh and joke, I thought for a fleeting moment how different the scene would be now if I had never made it home yesterday. My mind refused to linger there, because it was impossible to imagine myself really not being here. Of course I was having breakfast with my parents, like I always did. Of course I was getting ready for school, like usual. I was even happy to go to school. Caitlin had gotten her car back from the shop after school yesterday, so she picked me up. Her dad had bought her the car for her 16th birthday. I had been impressed by such an expensive present, but Caitlin had shrugged it off as guilt money. Her dad was a workaholic who didn't see his kids very often. Caitlin's attitude was that she might as well take advantage of the situation, but I knew it bothered her. "Feels good to be alive, doesn't it?" Caitlin acknowledged my great mood. A look of understanding passed between us. Then we were back to light-hearted chatter. Brad spotted me in the hallway at school and came bounding up to me. Caitlin rolled her eyes at me and took off. "Hey, babe." Brad leaned in for a kiss. I kissed him back briefly. Public displays still made me uncomfortable. Brad's popularity ensured that people noticed and gossiped about these things. "You know, babe, the girls like you. You don't have to hang out with that weird girl anymore." Brad had a look of distaste when he said this last part. Annoyance marred my good mood. "She is not weird. Her name is Caitlin, and she's my best friend." The warning bell cut my tirade short. "Later, babe." Brad walked off without a backward glance. "My name isn't Babe, either," I muttered. Deciding not to dwell on it, I made my way to class. My good spirits quickly returned. English class made my day even better, because Duncan's warm attitude toward me had not abated. It was wonderful to see his open smile instead of the guarded gaze that had so often greeted me. "How are you today, Suzannah?" "Alive," I said, with simple gratitude. We fell into a comfortable silence. I didn't try to read his thoughts, but his presence beside me was hard to ignore. He seemed to be suffused with a radiant energy. After a while, I broke my own rule and spoke to him with my thoughts. "Happy much?" Though I wasn't looking at him, I could practically feel his smile. "You started it. I barely had time to open my eyes this morning before I was overwhelmed by your wave of happiness." "Are you serious? You could sense my good mood all the way at your house?" I sneaked a peek at his face to see if he was kidding. Duncan's gaze was clear and steady. "It's more than a good mood, Susannah. You were feeling joy, and that's an emotion I haven't experienced in a long time. Thanks for giving me that." I had to look away suddenly. "I didn't do anything. I didn't even know that you could sense how I was feeling." "I know," he said. "Ever since I found out about your abilities, I thought that you were projecting false emotions to manipulate me. I couldn't believe that you were really as sweet as you seemed to be. I've been terrible to you, and I want to apologize for that." "Well," I joked, "since you saved my life, I guess I'll forgive you. Maybe." "I'm serious," Duncan said. "I've been such a jerk to you when you didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." I looked into his pale blue eyes. "I'm serious too, Duncan. You're forgiven." His smile reappeared. "Good." My smile was just as wide. "Good." That's how our relationship changed to a real friendship. That afternoon, Duncan found me in the park and fell into step beside me. "I thought you might be here. You never told me how Caitlin took the news about what happened yesterday." I told him the whole story, including Caitlin's chilling disclosure about my foray into child fortune-telling, of which I had no memory. "Mom was right," Duncan mused. "Your abilities manifested early. They must have been dormant all this time. It's amazing how strong they are with no practice at developing them and no one to explain to you how to use them. I've never met anyone else like you." His compliments embarrassed me. I changed the focus to him. "So your parents taught you how to read minds?" "No," Duncan corrected. "You can't teach someone how to actually do it, only explain how to focus the ability. The mental barrier is the most important part, as you found out yesterday. You don't want to let just anybody's thoughts through." The last was said with a bitterness that made me glance at him sharply. "Anyway," he continued in a normal tone, "it takes practice and concentration. Except you somehow were able to skip that part." He was back to me again. I asked him questions about his childhood, and he in turn wanted to know about mine. I usually looked forward to my solo walks, but now I didn't mind the company. When we parted ways, I continued to think about everything I had learned about him during our conversation. As the days and weeks passed, our bond grew stronger. Brad and Mandy had football and cheerleading practice respectively. Caitlin was rehearsing for the school play. She had gotten the part she wanted, to the surprise of no one. Duncan often joined me on my walks in the park. We talked about everything and anything, including our favorite music, books, and movies. He made me laugh with his stories of surfing mishaps in California. I now knew that his mother was an artist who worked at home. By unspoken agreement, we didn't bring up our dating lives. I was still going out with Brad, but I had started to wonder why. Duncan knew me much better than my boyfriend did. During our conversations, I was the one who asked most of the questions and tried to think up topics to talk about. Brad didn't seem too interested in finding out much about me. I hadn't even told him that my birthday was coming up soon. We did the normal things on our dates, like going out to dinner and the movies. We had even gone bowling and played mini golf. The date of the party we had been invited to was fast approaching. Brad had stayed true to his word about keeping his hands to himself, but he was now increasingly trying to talk me into further than I wanted to. "Come on, babe. How long are you going to make me wait?" he had breathed in my ear. Duncan interrupted my thoughts. "Mom's looking forward to seeing you again." "I'm looking forward to seeing her too," I said sincerely. I had agreed to go home with Duncan after school because his mom had invited me over for tea. Later on, I was going out to dinner with my parents and Caitlin. Mrs. McKenna gave me a hug when she opened the door. "Happy birthday, Suzana!" "Happy birthday," Duncan said. "How did you—" I began. "Oh, why am I even surprised?" "September 21st, Duncan said. "Remember, I found out the day you wore that pink dress to school." Mrs. McKenna laughed. "You sure made an impression on him in that dress, Suzana. Apparently, you were a vision in pink." "It's pretty in pink, Mom." "Ha ha," I added in. "Very clever, Duncan." There was a chocolate cake on the table. Duncan was a very good listener, because he remembered that chocolate was my favorite. He put one candle in the middle and lit it. "Make a wish, Susanna." "You shouldn't have gone through all this trouble." "It was no trouble," Mrs. McKenna said. "Go ahead and make your wish." At that moment, I was at a loss as to what to wish for. I leaned over the cake to blow out the candle and decided to wish that things would stay as perfect as they were right now. Duncan got the plates out while his mom began to cut us each a piece of cake. She also poured tea for all of us. I complimented her on the cake, which made Duncan laugh. "It came from the store," she said with a mock glare at her son. "I'm afraid I'm not much of a baker. Thank you for doing this. It was so thoughtful. You've been so kind to me." "You are a sweet girl, Susanna. I'm glad that Duncan has made a good friend here." After we were done with our cake and tea, Duncan excused himself. He returned shortly with a present.
This is from both of us.
He tried to hand it to me. Oh, I protested. This is too much. The cake was more than enough. Take it, Suzana, Mrs. McKenna insisted. We want you to have it. I took the little box from Duncan and opened it. Inside was a gold necklace with a gold lightning bolt pendant. I was so touched that I could barely speak. How could they know? At first, I had thought about it as the day I was almost killed. Now, when I thought about that day, it was with a sense of wonder at my survival. It was also a reminder of my special bond with Duncan.
Are you upset?
His voice was filled with concern.
If it upsets you, if you don't like it.
I love it. I had found my voice. But I can't accept this. It's too much. Nonsense, Mrs. McKenna cut in. It's your birthday, and you should enjoy it. I don't know what to say. Again, thank you so much.
I should get you home,
Duncan said.
You don't want to be late for your own birthday dinner.
Duncan, come with us, I said impulsively. I turned to Mrs. McKenna. May Duncan go to dinner with us? Of course, Susanna. It's your day to celebrate. Duncan looked unsure.
Are you sure your parents won't mind?
They said that I could invite any friends that I wanted to. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to make a big deal out of it. Now it's too late for that. Besides, my parents would love to meet you.
Suzana,
Duncan said.
Don't you get it? Your birthday is a big deal, especially this one. You're alive to see it. Yes, I'll celebrate it with you.
Remember, I reminded him when he parked on the street in front of my house. My parents don't know about the lightning strike, and I want to keep it that way.
They won't hear about it from me,
Duncan assured me. If only I had gotten the same promise from Caitlin. Her eyes zeroed in on the necklace as soon as I came downstairs. She had arrived sometime after I went upstairs to change after introducing Duncan to my parents. Mom had smiled a knowing smile at me. I had decided to wear the pink dress. It wasn't because of what Duncan had said, I told myself. Oh my God, Caitlin shrieked. Where did you get that necklace? Was it a present from Duncan?
From Mom and me,
Duncan explained. That's beauty. Mom's voice was drowned out by Caitlin. That's kick-ass. You're like the girl who lived. Only Duncan is kind of like Harry Potter. Yeah, show him you're not afraid of lightning.
Caitlin,
Dad said.
Have you been drinking?
Mom cut to the chase. Why should she be afraid of lightning? Caitlin realized her mistake. Mom wasn't going to let go of this now. Out with it, Susie. What's going on? It was Duncan who spoke up.
Suzana was almost struck by lightning a few weeks ago.
What? My parents cried out in unison. Duncan pushed me out of the way. I was actually glad to tell them this.
Pushed you out of the way?
Dad asked.
How could he push you out of the way? Nobody knows when lightning is going to strike.
Duncan does, Caitlin said. He's psychic.
It was just a freak thing,
Duncan said smoothly.
Really, I just happened to stumble into Suzana and knock her down at the right moment. It was pure luck. Caitlin has blown it out of proportion.
Whatever. Have it your way. Even as she said this, Caitlin couldn't contain her smile. Susie, how could you keep a thing like that from us? I'm fine, Mom. I just got rained on. Duncan's mom dried my clothes and made me tea.
Well, young man, however it happened, you are a hero.
Dad put a hand on Duncan's shoulder.
I'm glad that you were there to save Susie.
Mom was having a delayed reaction. My God, if Susie had been killed! Dad let go of Duncan and embraced Mom.
We're not going to think that way. We're going out to celebrate her birthday.
He looked over her shoulder at us.
You've got the right attitude, kids. Look it in the eye.
I walked up to Mom. See, I'm right here. Dad succeeded in making Mom laugh.
Look on the bright side. At least Caitlin wasn't drinking.
With that, We managed to get Mom out the door. We all piled into Dad's car, with me and Duncan in the back seat, with Caitlin between us, mouthing sorry. As Dad drove to my favorite Italian restaurant, I felt like my wish had already come true. It was a perfect birthday.